All right, we good? Yeah, Maria Ressa, thank you so much for speaking to France 24. So for people who weren't at your talk yesterday, what was your big takeaway?
Um, that the harms are not in the future. They're happening now. They have happened now. The impact has been there at a personal level. What was used to radicalize terrorists in the past, right? This is what my last years of reporting with CNN showed, is now been unleashed by technology on the population. And what we are seeing is that people, the cellular level of democracies we are electing illiberal leaders democratically. And that's part of the reason, as of last year, it was VDEM in Sweden said that 71% of the world is now under authoritarian rule, right? The fact that France, Canada, the United States, the Philippines, I mean, we did this in 2016, right? The fact that we are electing far more far right leaders. This is partly due to the design of social media, the AI, the first time, because we talk about generative AI as if it's just happened. It's been around for 70 years, and now we are living with the consequences. Deal with the harms now, hold these companies accountable, because they're the very same ones that are rolling out generative AI.
What are your hopes that something constructive will come out of the AI summit, given the US's approach at the moment?
You should phrase that question more aggressively. No, we're seeing a rollback of the small palliative measures, the band-aid measures that were put in place by American companies, right? But here are the reasons why I think there's some good things that have happened. Number one is that well, let me lay out what the dangers are. What we've seen from social media is a breakdown in electoral integrity and how online violence has become real world violence, right? We've seen this all around the world. I'll start with the online violence. We know, and this is Meta and the UN, that sent people to Myanmar in 2018, where they both came back and said that this platform, Facebook, played a role in genocide in Myanmar. No one has been held accountable. On electoral integrity, we have evidence dating back to 2016 of electoral flaws that voters have been targeted in the US and the UK, right? But it wasn't until 2024, December 2024, when Romania voided an election because of Kremlin interference in social media. Now imagine if the UK and the US had the courage to actually take that evidence and call for clean and fair elections. This is what the world is dealing with today. And I think the last part is whether it is Putin or whether it is Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, who's that guy? Impunity must stop. The world needs to show that rule of law exists. That's what we need to see.
Do you see AI as an extension of this problem?
Yeah, AI is impunity in the sense of, if a journalist lied a million times, you would get a million lawsuits. But AI does the same function a million times, spreads disinformation, or I like the kind of the flattening of meaning by saying it's hallucinating. If a journalist hallucinated and you took that information and your life was put in danger, you would be held accountable. And so AI again is a way to evade responsibility, to evade accountability, and the utter lack of transparency of insidious manipulation. All this must stop to bring us back. So you go back in an oh my gosh, what's the right word? At a time when journalism is at an existential moment. The business model is dead. Journalists are under attack. And even worse, the credibility that we once valued so much is actually infiltrated. It's like termites eating wood, right? It's existential for us. At the same time, if journalism dies this year, so will democracy. That goes back to the Nobel Peace Prize that said that it's why they gave the prize to Dimitri and me. And I think that's the question you have. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you go back. Do we have rule of law? Do citizens have rights? Or will we just be insidiously manipulated?
You shared the stage with the AFP yesterday. They've done a deal with Mistral. Is that a deal with the devil?
Um, that's I Rappler partners with every single tech company. Down to OpenAI, we were one of 10 groups chosen out of 1,000 to use the LLM of OpenAI for democratic consultations. If you're a news organization today, if you're managing a news organization, if you aren't working with the tech companies, you A, may not learn, but B, also leave money on the table. Having said that, it's a Faustian deal, right? It is a deal with the devil because ultimately, look what we did. The first mistake we did with social media is by putting the share buttons on our websites. And we sent our communities into these platforms and they were insidiously manipulated.
Is France and the EU doing enough to stand up for their role, which seems to be, as you're saying, the last ones to actually be able to stand up to the rule of law?
I thank the EU as a journalist from the global South. Without these regulations, this aren't enough. I've spent a lot of time really trying to shift the discussion from free speech to distribution, from words to algorithms, right? And I've testified in many of these, but I have to say, without the Digital Services Act, the Digital Markets Act, the AI Act, there is nothing. It's absolute impunity. France has been at the forefront. And I will say, like, the first time that I came in where we talked about the values of the internet, and this was with President Macron. This was in end of 2017, the beginning of 2018, and then we came out with the Forum on Information and Democracy. So I was part of this. I came out with a 2020 report, and what we do with this, the forum. I'll say one other thing: the international. Now I have to remember the Institute. IFPIM, International Fund for Public Interest Media, right? So what do you have to do? Because news organizations globally are dying. All of our money is money advertising, 85% to 90%. In my country, 90% to 95% is going to big tech. So what we did in 2019 was to set up something called the International Fund for Public Interest Media. France has been a fantastic supporter, and our base is in Paris, right? What have we done? We've raised in the last year or so $53 million, and we have given that money, journalists giving money to journalists in a very transparent process to be able to survive this existential moment. Without France, anyway, I hope France survives the onslaught. That's all I have to say.
Just very briefly, is it therefore bad that France 24 takes money from big tech, like through YouTube advertising?
No, I don't think it's either or, right? What happened to the world of nuance? I think you have to take that. Again, some purists will say, Maria, you're a fact checker. Why? Because my community is on Facebook. And if I want to help my community, if fact checking will help, great. If I will learn something in the process, and I did, by looking at the systems that Facebook had set up, I had been vocal up front that this is just a Band-Aid. It's like the dam is falling and we're holding it with our finger, right? It wasn't the right thing. They should have changed the design. The design of the platform spreads lies faster than facts. It rewards fear, anger, and hate. That's the reason why the world is as crazy as it is today. Having said that, if we do not understand the tech, we cannot A, work with it, B, conquer it.
Maria Ressa, thank you very much for speaking to France 24.
I sound really angry, don't I? It's